Shut up and sit down.
Okay. Welcome back to the Dity Deuce podcast. I'm your host, Ben. This is my co-host, Alan.
Hey, how's it going?
And today, I know you want to talk a little bit about an interesting movie on Netflix now that you saw, and you had me see.
I honestly expected it to be totally hipster. Like, I had no expectations of it. I had a bunch of stuff that I had to get done, so it was supposed to be for background noise. But also keep in mind for most of the people out there, while Ben is currently in and I'm out, we kind of really, between the two of us, get both ends of the military experience, one continuing, one on the outside, and then especially with the exposure of our current jobs, we've gotten to see a full spectrum of it. I bring all this up because I'm currently attending college in a pretty far left-leaning field, sociology, at the local state university, and I tend to see things a little differently from quite a few of my other fellow vets.
Also, location.
Yes. I'm in
without
San
giving
Diego.
away your home address, so you can have
I'm not
tons of
San Diego.
Yeah.
You find me amongst the other like 2 million people that live around here.
That is left-leaning, and if you go any farther left, you're going to fall in the ocean.
Yeah. You really, some people out here have like Karl Marx tattoos.
It's funny because where I'm at, Texas, I really consider myself more of a liberal, but where you're at, you really consider yourself more of a conservative, but we pretty much agree on, I would say, most things.
Yeah.
Meaning that we're probably moderates, and it's just a reflection of the area that we're in.
Absolutely. And that's kind of one of the things is the term liberals out here. There's, I mean, a lot of my friends, their parents, and quite a few of my friends refer to themselves as Democrats, but they're Democrats of the 1960s and 70s, and the party's changed quite a bit.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you look at historically, Republicans claim, hey, we're the party of Lincoln. And, I mean, they've literally completely reversed platforms over time.
So, this is why, for people that kind of are like, think it's a little peculiar for the things we bring up, or really the relevance of this film, a lot of it comes from my formal education. And I would love to hear what my friend has to say, seeing as how he's living the life of the bourgeoisie, as they say.
You want to talk a little bit about the film, intro, name, and all that?
Yeah. The movie is What Happened to Monday. For anybody that hasn't seen it, I would recommend strongly that you see it. And when you do, prepare to actually watch it, unless you're brain dead. It actually touches on a hell of a lot of social issues and moral questions that we don't really bother to ask. So heads up, this is all going to be about spoilers. What was your initial impression, buddy?
Very interesting, and it does raise a series of questions. We should probably give, for those who haven't seen it, without spoiling too much. Like there's a story going on within the story, but the larger story, the meta story, is we're in the future and the world has implemented a one-child policy similar to what China has for the longest time. I think they're coming out of the one-child policy. It's been effective to a degree, and they've seen a curbing of that out-of-control population. But the global population is increasing, and it's unsustainable. So in this movie, there's a global one-child policy, and children who are born illegally, essentially. They've done nothing wrong, committed no crime. Whereas in China, usually the parents have to pay like significant extra taxes for breaking that law. In the movie, the children are put in some sort of futuristic cryogenic sleep until some undetermined time in the future where the population has come down to a reasonable level and they can be unfrozen and allowed to live their lives.
There's a caveat to this.
Mm-hmm.
What the prelude to the one-child policy is that Earth was basically running out of food. So
Yes.
we stepped up and used, genetic engineering to make crops that would be able to feed everybody. And a consequence of that is that people started basically having twins and triplets and quadruplets like crazy.
Yes.
As a consequence of the food, which is why they implemented the one-child policy and said they stuck the rest in the freezer.
Yeah.
So the rest of the movie picks up on, interestingly enough, William Dafoe's character, one of my favorites,
Mm-hmm.
and picks up on his daughter dying in childbirth, giving childbirth to 7 identical, I don't even know what you would call that, not an octuplet.
Yeah, I don't know what the proper
Yeah.
term for 7.
But 7 children, 7 girls, all look the same. Conveniently played by one character, by the way. Excellent job, Netflix.
Yeah, saving money.
Yeah, saving money, and I have no idea how they managed to get everybody on screen at the same time. Because people are touching each other, walking past each other. They did a magnificent job.
I imagine they use a lot of body doubles, like somebody just in the right colored wig facing from the back.
I mean, I looked for that, right? And certainly in the action scenes.
Mm-hmm.
But in the intro or family scenes, like at the table, interesting. Especially when there's overlap. So, who knows how they did it. Hats off to them and their craftsmanship.
Yes. It was very well executed. Aside from just being, philosophically, morally, an interesting question posed what to do with the out-of-control population on the planet Earth, very well executed, just as a movie.
So what happens is each of the children are named for a different day of the week. And then that child gets to go out and experience life on the day that corresponds to their name. This follows all the way until they're grown women. So at some point, and it doesn't go into detail on how the grandfather, William Dafoe, passes away, but at some point they're on their own and they're working for a bank. I would say that, we're going into spoilers territory. That was probably one of the weaknesses of the plot. What's the coincidence that the main character, who happens to be 7 characters, is also the same one that was chosen for this plot to help, the head evil, basically Lex Luthor, like to help that person's campaign finances. Like, this is still, it's interesting to think this is still a society that votes and requires campaign financing, but a society that limits its children and literally tears parents away from their kids and sticks them in the freezer.
Another interesting thing that I saw, like a running theme, was a very powerful police state.
Yes.
Like, very limited reasonable expectation of privacy when you're walking around. Like, you are stop and frisk, checked, border entry control points like we have coming into the country, just like block to block, where you're asked, like, are you American citizen? Or, well, I don't think they ask citizenship, but, are you
do you have contraband?
Yeah, do you have contraband? Are you, an only child? Yeah, that sort of thing.
Kind of an interesting thing with that I noticed is the love interest of Monday. Movie's called What Happened on Monday. the love interest. Look at his apartment. So all of the sisters who work at the bank have a huge place, well furnished, all of that, and everybody involved with the government or police state also has a really nice place, like nicer than my place. And it's interesting to see how the common citizenry everywhere else lives. They live like shit.
Yeah.
So it seems to also touch onto that whole thing of, the police state and government is where the money's at, and everybody else is poor and just making a living huddling around trash bins.
Well, I think that's a historical, just sort of universal, that you have to appease the people with the guns.
It wasn't like Judge Dredd,
Yeah,
bleak.
Yeah.
But it was pretty bad. I mean, it's worse than we live here, even in our own cities.
Depends where you live, but yes, definitely.
I was just in Albuquerque. I'm not going to say it's my new low, but I was surprised. Unfortunately.
I'm curious because I haven't been to Albuquerque in a while. What made you say that specifically?
Did I tell you about the liquor store?
No.
I walked into a liquor. I shit you not, man. Okay, I went to a pizza place, got pizza, told my girlfriend to wait in the car. Albuquerque is where I decided I'm going to start carrying, whether I have a permit for it or not. Something to consider. You basically say, I'm at this point I'm going to step outside of the law for my own safety. Saying in the military being better judged by 12 than carried by 6.
Yes.
So, pretty bad. I don't generally carry when I'm back home. I just stay out of situations like that. But I went into the liquor store next to it. We're going to get some drinks. And one of the things that I saw was they were running a deal. They were selling spice and bath salts next to the register.
Oh, fuck. And
they had a bunch of glass pipes. This is one of the few things I don't appreciate the artistry in. Handmade. A bunch of glass pipes. Next to that, like 5 packs of spoons. Just, eat your cereal with kind of spoons. And next to that, a bunch of Bic lighters. And you could buy a pipe with bath salts for a deal. It's like $8. You could buy spoons pretty cheap. You could buy lighters pretty cheap. But you could buy the spoons, the pipe, and the lighter for $15 flat.
Hey, it's a deal. Everything you need. One-stop shopping.
It really was. And I got to discover a new flavor of Mike's Hard Lemonade. So, yeah, interesting place. I kind of doubt, though, that they were trying to, stay in business with diversity by hitting all the markets. There's definitely a feel to the place that I did not expect. A lot of businesses are boarded up now, like plywood on the windows. A lot of bars, drinking bars and bars on the windows. And the biggest thing I noticed is there's a lot of people throughout the day just hanging out in the street. Like you could walk from one person to the next without losing sight of the last one. And other than that, the infrastructure still beautiful compared to San Diego, California.
Yeah.
It's just, and then the people seemed okay, except it just seems that it's gotten run down a noticeable amount since my last travels through there.
Interesting. And you weren't through there not too long ago. Probably about the last time I was.
I went through there in 2011, the end of 2012, and then 2015. So about every 2 years since 2011.
Do you think it's localized, or do you think it's
reflective
of a national trend?
Keep in mind, so this trip was going to Arizona. Okay, let's go a little back before we go back to the movie. I went on a 2-week road trip with my girlfriend. Went to Arizona, went to Texas to see you, went to Oklahoma to see my other friend, and went to Albuquerque, then went up to Colorado for a week, and then drove back. So a lot of miles, and most of the business was in the desert, a whole lot of desert, touch a little bit on the Great Plains, a little bit in the Rockies and the mountains, and then back home, which is coastal desert. I'm kind of tired of looking at desert now. But I'm not going to say that it's necessarily a national trend. Um, Oklahoma didn't have that. Oklahoma City. If anything, Oklahoma City looks like it's doing better. I have never been to your neck of the woods, so I can't say on that. Phoenix is growing like it has no business doing.
Yeah.
We drove across Phoenix and it took more than half an hour on the freeway at 70 miles an hour.
Jesus.
It's getting really big, and places before where when I was leaving Phoenix, I would stop in. It'd be kind of like the last gas station before you head out of the town.
Mm-hmm.
It now had we were commenting on it. It had a shopping mall.
Whoa.
And that's been in the last year and a half. Somebody is, like SimCity 9000. Somebody is just like, there's a gas station there. Let's put a movie theater, a Kohl's, a Home Depot, not necessarily a Walmart, but a Target, if there isn't a Walmart, like a full one-stop shopping center. And it's almost like the city's starting to break down into districts to where you have everything you need in your little spot and you're not living in the city itself. And San Diego has much of the same setup. There's East, North, and South County, and West is, the beach. So it's interesting to see that a lot of people will, especially when we're talking about San Diego, they'll ask me about a whole bunch of stuff. I'm like, I'm sorry, that's North County. I don't have any business up there because I'm not going to drive 45 minutes to check out a burger place.
I think it's interesting that humans, to one extent or another, have like a critical mass. Like, you can only put so many people in an area before they start to define themselves as something entirely different. And I think a lot of it's just based on population density. Like, you can have, a small town and be like, oh, I'm part of this county, and you identify as that, or, a regular sized town, I'm from this town. Maybe a very small city, yeah, that's the city I'm from. But when you start getting into these larger cities, I mean, you identify from like a quarter of the city. I know the city I'm in now does the same thing, where it's like, oh, I'm from this section. And then I think you look at places with crazy high population densities like New York, and you may identify as somebody from just a section of just a couple of blocks.
Yeah.
It's very interesting how we break ourselves into groups, and there's a certain point of just cramming people into a place where they won't internalize that I am part of, XYZ group.
We additionally we have some other stuff going on with the area demographically. We have the largest Chaldean population where I grew up at. The largest Chaldean population on the West Coast. So it's further divided where people say they're from. And it's very interesting to see our experiences across, but we are moving away from the movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to go into too much of a tangent. I mean, this is kind of all ballpark related.
Yeah. But with the movie, when I saw it, I was very interested. Characters get killed off, main characters, like crazy.
Oh yeah, that is to kind of digress and go on a small tangent. That is something that I really respect in a movie, Because a lot of what takes the suspense out of a suspenseful movie, or really any sort of action movie or anything like that, is this guy ain't gonna die. He's the main character. Main love interest, a cute kid, puppy dog, something like that. Nothing's gonna happen to him. Nothing's gonna happen to him. So he could be in the most dire threat, like no possibility of escape, and he's gonna be fine. Because he's the main character. But I really respect a movie, especially a TV series, because these guys have kind of like an ongoing gig, or a book series, something like that, and they just kill people off for the story. It's, necessary to create the suspense. Like, whoa, if this main character is, has the capacity to get killed, anybody can get killed at any time. If somebody's in danger, they are in actual danger.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's I'll be honest, I did not expect the treachery that befell them in the end.
Yeah.
I mean, I suspected from the beginning that, it's like, where are you going to store all these people? That is such, if you're already tapped for resources, it is so inefficient to store people with the promise of bringing them about later. If we did that at any point in our history, like if we were thawing out people from the 50s right now, it would just be creating problems.
And not only that, we can always make more people.
That was never the problem. So
this is the thing that's sometimes I get some flack for this, but people really aren't that special. Like there are tons of them everywhere.
You're gonna melt the snowflake thing.
Ooh, oh well.
Yeah, you'll be fine.
People aren't special. Most people, including me. Who am I? Some guy. Fuck me. I don't matter. I'm just one little guy sucking down cheeseburgers and pumping out CO2. That's... Most people are like that. Some more than others. Some people are just oxygen thieves out there, not producing anything, not creating anything, just existing. Some at like a deficit to making the world a worse place around them. But this idea that you're going to take people that were unwanted in the time that they were created and then thaw them out sometime in the future? Why? Why would the future people even feel a debt to these people? Like, they were cast off in their own time. What makes them, like, we're going to run out of people? Like, somehow that's going to be a valuable resource? Like, the only potential I could see that is some sort of, like, slave labor. Like, hey, we're running out of, cheap people in the factory to make our whatever's popular at the iPhone 43, whatever they're up to. Let's thaw some more out, work them until they're dead, and then thaw some more out.
Their best bet would to be jettisoning those people into space, and after jettisoning them into space, just continuing to send them out until we get some people that are smart or innovative enough to survive on their own and colonize like that.
Just like dandelions in the wind?
Pretty much.
Fuck it, we got enough of them.
Yeah,
because most of them are going to end up in the gutter, but some might make it to a new field.
Which goes towards the ending of the movie. Eventually the plot is exposed, and apart from the plot within the plot, the character plot, the overall plot is it's exposed. People are pissed. They're probably going to hang her, the protagonist in the movie, which I would say she was a absolutely unreasonable protagonist. Just like she's hating on siblings and twins. Like if they introduce some sort of ideology where the firstborn is the strongest and most pure, like we're going back Animal Planet style. The first is the strongest and the rest are going to be a waste. I think that would have lent more credibility to the amount of effort they put forth in hunting the main characters.
Yeah.
Or the main antagonist. The main characters, then, as opposed to it's like they called in the National Guard when it really wasn't necessary. And earlier in the film, they showed them just using cops to take kids away.
Yeah.
So when it finally is exposed, she basically says, "I weep for humanity, for you know not what you do."
Mm.
And I couldn't help but agree. I'd just be like, yeah, we got the bad guy, but fuck, we're going straight back to fucking up, aren't we?
Yeah.
Like it does leave a bitterness at the end of the film.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I mean, just because you're
Like
proposing some evil solutions doesn't mean that you're wrong about the problems.
we got the moral high ground as we sink, in the pile of filth that all the new people are going to be making.
Yeah. So I'll throw it out there. How possible do you think that is as a scenario for the future presented in the movie?
I think a lot of it's very likely, and we may even see it within our lifetime. Overpopulation, a lack of food, we're already seeing, especially my trip through Texas, we're already seeing a quick use or destruction of the natural resources that we have. I live in a place where they're always saying, hey, we're in a drought. You guys need to conserve water or we're not going to have it. Nobody cares. People still have grass. They just think, okay, I'll pay more and I'll charge more when I sell my house. It's done nothing but inflate the value of homes
Mm-hmm.
and push people that can't afford it out. But I think we will eventually be seeing that as a very real threat, even if it's not just in America. Anybody that has the time, I would recommend look at India.
Oh yeah.
Look at a place that does not have regulation. Look at their rivers. Look at their manufacturing. Look at what they do with their dead, and it will open your eyes.
I think that's a key piece that was really missing from the film was the existence of countries. The whole world was treated as, it didn't have any borders, and income inequality was spread not country to country but within the city. And you saw, definitely the poor people starving where the rich were, I would say, fairly well off. Any people who had access to the monetary system, any people who had access to the levers of government, I'd say they were all doing pretty well.
Yeah, yeah, they were
Um,
very well.
yeah. But in our reality, we have countries, and if you look at the demographics, the the ones who are consuming the most, the first world countries who are consuming the most of whatever, really, whether it be food, fuel, all sorts of resources, a lot of them actually have populations that are going down. They've got a negative birth rate.
The developing nations were like valuing intelligence and productivity, and looking towards the future.
Yes, the developed. Well, I don't think it's anything really planned. I think it's just a something that comes about when you have a long life expectancy. You just kind of put off having kids, and then when you have one, you just have one. There's just something about living in a first world country that produces a negative birth rate. Japan probably has the leading negative birth rate. Italy, Germany, the U.S. would have a negative birth rate if it wasn't for immigration into the country. We would be going down in population as well. Uh, so it's really the developing world that is producing all these extra people. And in the movie, the thing that was killing people was hunger. You know, they were running out of food. And then you had people in the first world having to, have population control so that they didn't run out of food either. But they're still living in really nice houses and, had all this futuristic technology and stuff like that. And I think that's a little unrealistic. That there's an idea that the rich are going to be subject to this one-child policy, and the poor are literally going to be starving to death. I think that global overpopulation is really, the burden of it is really going to fall on the poor, like disproportionate. And I'm not even poor in America. Like, you can be poor in America and still be obese. You can live well below the poverty line and be 300 plus pounds.
Every now and then for my major or for work, I have to go by the welfare office or different places that offer social services. It blows my fucking mind that I have like a Galaxy S4 that's a couple years old, and there's people with new iPhones.
Yeah.
These are people saying, I don't have a place to live. I'm just like, how did you get an iPhone?
This is a probably a conversation that we could do an entire episode on, and I want to in the future.
Yeah,
but I will say this: I've got some family members that I see this, some people that have really just settled in life and never really got past that basic minimum wage job, even though they've had opportunities to. I know one person, parents had a savings set up for this dude to go to college, right, his entire life. Whenever he's coming up, parents are always putting into it. And he gets to the point, he's like, I don't really want to do school. School's hard. I got a job. It makes, above minimum wage, but not by much. And for years now, he's been living with his mom, working his little shitty minimum wage, slightly above job, and not really going anywhere. And I'm sort of torn in between myself, right? Because part of me says that, education and higher incomes and that sort of thing is good for the society. A rising tide lifts all boats. It's good for people to have money and that sort of things, and their work should be rewarded, right? So part of me is for things like raising the minimum wage so people aren't struggling just to make basic ends meet. But if you ever take that down to an individual level and you talk to these people and they're like, hey, why are you struggling to make basic ends meet? And very rarely is it like, hey, I was walking down the street, going to college, just left a church, I got hit by a meteor, I had massive medical expenses, the insurance agency said that meteors were a pre-existing condition because they've been around since the dawn of time, and they refused to cover me, and I'm totally fucked. Those things do happen. Some pretty innocent people get fucked occasionally, right? But if you talk to the average person who's sucking up these welfare or all these social services that are provided for people, they've made a lot of stupid decisions and continue to make stupid decisions.
Yeah.
It is hard to be poor. It is hard to be poor. Like, I went to a university in New Mexico, had a lottery scholarship, so the lottery paid for my school provided I made decent grades. They paid tuition for in-state students. Awesome program. But I still had to make, decent grades, show up, keep an average, and work hard. And over the summer, I would work to support myself. And then going into the military just on a specialist's base pay, which if you look at the numbers isn't very high, I was able to put my wife through her doctorates on out-of-state tuition. And, it was tight, but I did it, But at no point was I going out and renting a fucking Ferrari. I drove very, very old, beat-up vehicles or something very economic for the time. I had a series of different vehicles that I went through just depending. but never anything new, never anything nice. I didn't have cable television. I didn't have a television at all. I still don't. It's a waste of time. Don't get it. Uh, but still having things like that, I had very, very basic internet just through the cell phone system.
Great radio, though.
Great radio.
Yeah.
Great radio, and it was free whether you wanted it or not. Lived in, I would say, not the greatest place. Nobody ever shot me, though. But I lived within my means. And after just trudging through that for a couple of years, I went over to the officer side, which to the position that I'm in now, and my time in, I make decent money. And my wife, of course, got her doctorates, so she makes decent money. And now it's just kind of coming in hand over fist. But it's a pattern of, I would even say, smart decisions. I'm not going out there and I'm investing in Google the first week it comes out. I'm not doing any financial wizardry to be financially stable. I just don't do dumb shit. And when you really sit down and talk to people who need this assistance, they've blown it. They've had a lot of opportunities, and they've blown them consistently by making poor decisions. But I would say even more than that, being indisciplined. I think that's the biggest reason that people are broke. Being indisciplined. And it's hard for me to sympathize and go from, the abstract idea of, poverty is bad and we need to help people, to this person has been given a lot of opportunities in life and systematically blown it, and now they want more money.
So a couple things. Some people are going to be like, fuck you, college boy. Because there's the whole thing of you had the opportunity to go to college on a scholarship, right?
Yes.
Okay. I don't mean to tear into my friend either.
No, go.
But a lot of people don't necessarily have those opportunities. I see, unfortunately, for where I work, I see a lot of guys that fuck themselves right out the gate. They tried college for 1 or 2 semesters, failed their way through. So imagine failing 2 full semesters and join the military, get out, and apart from retaking all the classes and using their GI Bill to do that, their GPA has tanked so bad that they can't get into a university, no matter how hard they try. I know for myself, I was given an opportunity when I was younger to either go to high school or to work. And at the time, $600 a week in cash was pretty good money. So, especially while I should have been going to high school. The thing that I did not take into account, and I feel that you may not be taking into account, buddy, is the type of people that utilize those programs. A lot of them are shitbags, but there are quite a few people that are not as fortunate as us to have everything working. So when I say that, I'm
define everything working.
Oh, I mean the mind, their mental facilities. Some people do not have it in them to reason, or perfect example, Deuce art.
Yes.
Okay. By the grace of all the gods that watch over him, he's doing well. But he should not be able to.
No, that's true. For those of you who don't know, this is by far and away the dumbest man I've ever met in my life.
To be fair, Deuce art, if you ever hear this, I kind of like you, but it really depends on the day, buddy. You've done us really dirty a lot of times. And I can't even say you have a good heart because I don't think you could comprehend what heart is. Anyways, yeah, there's some people that are just broken out the gate. They don't get to run with the rest of the kids. I know my younger brother had a girlfriend that was schizophrenic, and that bitch was off the rocker all the time. She would habitually make stupid decisions because it's what felt good at the time. I'm also referring to crystal meth, by the way, because it's like, well, I could. It goes into that whole thing of like, you know, cost versus reward. She could smoke some dope right now and feel good and not deal with her problems, or she could go to rehab and go through a bunch of pain and have to basically face adversity and everything else. And when it boils down to it, not a lot of people are ambitious, like the family member you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, a good friend of ours.
Yeah.
Sometimes people simply lack ambition and are willing to settle. And even more so when that's all they care for.
Yeah.
So in relevance to the movie, and to our own personal lives, we, through hard work and meritorious service, at some point we'll go about the meritorious service and relevance to the Shawshank Redemption for myself. But at some point, you kind of have to look back and realize that some people are okay with drinking themselves to death. Some people are okay with not trying. And on the other hand of it, a lot of people just out the gate wouldn't be around if they weren't supported, especially people with mental illness.
Yeah, definitely. I think maybe some of my pronouncements maybe came off as a little bit more universal than I meant them. There's definitely special cases. I mean, you look at any population, there's going to be those outliers that just can't function. And I'm not saying, oh, those people need to starve in the streets. There definitely needs to be some social safety nets. Absolutely. It's the hallmark of a civilized society that the weakest among you aren't just starving in the streets, that they're taken care of. And what's funny is we as a country really don't do that well of taking care of those people, the people with severe disabilities, the people who need to be institutionalized their entire life. Another tangent, but my mom's going through something very similar right now where uh, she had a family member who had his mother and son, and the son had severe disability. He's mentally about a 9-year-old. And he went all the way his entire life. He's in his, I would say, like late 40s, early 50s, something like that. And she died. The mother died, took care of him his entire life. And now he's just sort of thrown to the wind. And there's a lot more to the story. It makes it a more interesting story. I'm just kind of giving you the very, very basic cliff notes of what I need to make my point. But my mom sort of stepped in to take care of him because if he was just left to the system, I mean, he wouldn't make it. Absolutely wouldn't make it. They wouldn't take care of his medical. They wouldn't take care of his mental issues, and they'd probably sell off his home, take all the money to put to various different living cares, and then when all that ran out, he would just be left to die somewhere. Not maybe like left to die in the street, but, a benign neglect that kills him within the system. And that's horrible. You really need, even in a country as wealthy as ours, you need a family member to step in to make sure that the system doesn't just destroy you. You know? So we're very poor about giving people who really, really need it decent social safety nets. But we extend that net up that ladder of ability to people who really could do the right thing. I mean, we've known people who are smart enough, just in the military, let's use that example. We know plenty of people who were smart enough and had a high school education and did well enough that they could go to university and succeed in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they got out, and by not like one bad decision, but like a series of fucked up decisions, blew it. Absolutely blew it. Golden opportunity. The government says, thank you for your service. I'm going to pay for the next 4 years of your college. Had it all set up and blew it. Consistently. Almost all of them.
Actually, on my little, semi-world tour, it's pretty much just been sorrow and pain and fuck-ups that I've run into.
And how much of it is self-induced?
Almost all of it. Just about all of it. And I say just about all of it because, some people like a friend of ours named AK, there has got to be some mental toll of taking all of those deployments back to back to back to back.
Yeah, that dude had a hard ride.
Yeah, he had a hard ride for a long time and didn't deal with it well. But I get what you're saying with the social programs to help people out and kind of a measure of society. But I find myself, especially in the field that I'm pursuing, becoming pretty calloused because we really don't have any provisions to put people to work that are not that can work. I mean, like, we don't have that Soviet style, like the people that work in the factory are able-bodied people and those who can't work, writing ledgers or something. Like, we don't have as productive of a workforce as we can.
Tools to the hands that can wield them?
Yeah, pretty much. We do not have that. Because a lot of the people, it drives me absolutely fucking nuts to be sitting in class and have somebody talking about how their welfare or disability does not pay enough for them to live. And I'm thinking, it's like, how did you get here? How are you walked, the same 20 minutes I got to walk to class. You drove here. You eat out. You talk about hanging out with your friend. You basically are talking about doing a lot of the things that I do, but have put forth no work or effort for it. And some of the people are saying, I have these pains or this mental instability, but it sucks because a lot of people are taking advantage of, as they say, taking advantage of the system.
Exactly. And you can see that with studies that have been tried in various states where they take like the length of unemployment, right? And if you give somebody a week's worth of unemployment, you give it to them on a Monday, they're going to have a job on Sunday. Mm-hmm. They're going to have that job on Tuesday, they're going to have it on Sunday. If you give them 2 weeks, they're going to take 2 weeks. If you give them a month, you give them 6 months, they're going to take 6 months. Without fail, at the end of that 6 months, when it's like, I'm going to lose my home, I'm going to meet some sort of significant consequence, boom, all of a sudden they find a job.
Yeah, that's what it is. People, we're lazy. We're animals. We do as little as we can for as much as we can, and when we find a comfortable little spot, then that's where we stay. If that comfortable little spot is working at a 7-Eleven and getting booze, occasionally, picking a girl up from the bar, and sitting back and watching TV all day, a lot of people do that.
And it's hard to fight that because a lot of that is evolution. We are designed to be as efficient as possible. And if something's working, man, it's a good idea not to fuck with it. We're designed to do as little as possible, conserve as much energy, take as little risks as possible that we need to get what we need. But a lot of those evolutionary drives that we've experienced don't serve us very well in the modern society.
No.
And I think kind of what it comes down to is discipline.
What crosses the bridge between discipline and, we'll say, ambition? Because something I've noticed out here, especially since I'm in roughly the area that I was raised in, And I run into people that I went to high school with all the time, and a lot of the people are working as much as possible in a job that pays them as little as possible, and they're eking out a living with, children. And there's really not much going on.
Yeah.
So,
I think they're correlated. I think
yeah,
a successful person needs both. If you have just ambition, but you don't have any discipline, you end up, being a drug dealer, a bank robber, or something like that. You're looking for all the shortcuts in life.
the funny thing I thought about is some of the frat boys doing the law programs, doing coke and getting caught with strippers or prostitutes. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Ambition without discipline. And if you have discipline without ambition, join the
You end up in
army.
the army.
Yeah, you end up in the army. That's
Yeah,
exactly what happens.
yeah. You
We
end up
need.
being a sergeant major who pushes grocery carts because somebody said that's a good thing to do after you retire.
Yeah. You do your time, you just do exactly what you're told for 20 years, and you get out, and you have nobody telling you what to do. You have no intrinsic value left that you're giving to the society, and you end up shooting yourself.
Yeah. The thing that I'm noticing also, especially with a lot of the stuff that's going on the outside, is socialization plays a large part in what people choose to do with their lives.
Exactly.
Something. So, I have a girlfriend. I've had her for a little bit. You've been married for a little bit. I'm gonna go off on a little rant here. I generally fucking hate married people. I really do. And people with kids, because their world is completely closed into that. And it's like you come over, you're visiting for a little bit, and when it's not convenient anymore, you leave. You guys are an exception to the rule, you and your wife. But I don't know. It's really weird, and especially talking to my friends that are female, that whole thing of like a partnership that lasts for eternity, your vows, sounds fucking crazy to me. That whole thing of like, me and my wife love each other so much. If you stuck us in a cabin in Alaska and we didn't see anybody else for the rest of our lives, we'd be fine.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
I think sort of interesting. I was talking to my wife about this today, that we are to a large degree the exception to the rule. And if you look at either of us, you, me and her, whatever, uh, we are all statistical outliers in a major way, in a lot of different fields that you want to look at. Give the listening public out there a short bio of the epic that I had to go through. Me and my wife were separated for 7 years, where we were living in different states, where she was going to school, and I was in the army getting sent all over the world. Some of it could have easily been changed by some bean counter up in the Pentagon just moving one bean from this location to that location and sending me at no cost to the government up to be with her. And they're like, it's a lot of work to move that bean. So there is some bitterness and hostility uh, towards that faceless aspect of the army that just fucks people without even really meaning to or trying to, because it's such a monolithic institution. But that being aside, how many marriages can go through 7 years apart and still be good together? Like, we're great. We never argue about anything. But one of the good things, one of the reasons that is we are such a really, really good match for each other. And we are one of those groups that, yeah, you could stick us in Alaska or a desert island or wherever, and we could just see each other every day and not murder each other, because our personalities click, and we just get along. That being said, I am an incredibly picky motherfucker when it comes to dating. You know, I'm definitely a quality above quantity kind of guy. And, I'm sure there are a lot of people out there saying like, oh,
A lot of people are saying "fuck you," by the way.
yeah,
Yeah.
fuck me in my perfect life.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I took my lumps for it. 7
I,
years as a geographic bachelor.
I will say this from the outside looking in, it had bumps. And in the entire time I've known you and your wife, the most I've ever seen her smile, and the first time I saw her laugh was this last time I visited.
Yeah, it's not a storybook, but
You
I
guys are
didn't.
finally together.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
I didn't just settle for anyone. I think that's the biggest problem with marriage is people just look at it like, oh, it's about that time, and I've been dating you, and things seem to be going okay. Fuck it.
My favorite. He's financially stable.
Oh yeah,
Like, yeah, yeah. Talk about the stresses on a man. Like,
just putting the fucking hooks in.
yeah, tell me about it. Yeah, definitely one of the, it's interesting how we look at relationships now too. I am incredibly adverse to the idea of marriage. Like, fuck that.
It's really an interesting sort of institution. Uh,
Yeah.
Primarily exists just to raise children,
Yeah.
and in modern society, when a lot of people are opting out of being parents, and again, tying it back to the movie, so we do at least have some sort of a coherent theme. Uh, it's not like we're running out of people.
No, we're not.
Back in the day, we're a whole bunch of like Bedouin tribes, and if we don't like produce so many fertile male heirs, like nobody's gonna be able to like herd the sheep or hunt and
Yeah.
fish and do whatever. Like we're gonna fucking starve to death in our old age if we don't produce enough kids to take care of us. Like that
The
shit doesn't happen. We've got plenty of fucking people. They're everywhere. You can't lift up a rock without a person scuttling out from underneath it.
A very interesting thing for anybody that cares to know, look into what happened to France and France's military post World War One. Births took a huge dump. The number of men in the country took a huge dump, and they were seriously considering um, what they were able to do if Germany rose again, because they simply did not have the manpower of Germany. They did not have the bodies, and that's never been an issue for us here in America.
Oh yeah,
Like if we went to war with Britain, we could trade one for one until they ran out, and there'd still be people in California if
yeah,
all we sent was Californians.
yeah, totally.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a thing with manpower. It's going back again. A lot of my friends being women, a lot of things that are looked for in marriages: is he financially stable? Is he going to take care of me and our children? Something that pisses me off to no end, hearing it several times in my relationships and other people's, is the idea of wasting time, of people being like, I don't want to have a casual relationship because it would just be wasting time. For the longest time, I didn't understand what that meant until it dawned on me. Even if women don't say it, they're counting the biological clock. To
Absolutely.
which, yeah. So, fuck that. I like my girlfriend a lot, but she starts talking shit. Don't expect me to cave in and be like, okay, honey, getting married is going to solve our problems. Like, but getting to what you were saying, a lot of people do get married to solve problems, and especially out here where I'm at, where there's a really high cost of living, people get married to form a financial partnership.
Yeah, that is psychotic.
Yeah.
The idea that you would get married or have a child or do any major life decision in order to solve a problem that you're currently having is crazy. That's like having a bad hand at poker and being like all in. all in. I'm just gonna
How?
bluff my way out of this.
Yeah, dude. I mean, for some people it works, but
You know,
well,
but
the poker works.
the poker works, but you're bluffing that thing every fucking day for the rest of your life.
Yeah. How many? Okay, so something else too. How many of the guys got married? As you know, mentioned previously to dependopotamuses, or how many guys got married because they wanted a wife and a little bit extra money for BH to get out of the barracks, and then how many of those women just wanted out of the house? They wanted to, as people say, start the next chapter of their lives where they were independent, even though they were tied to another person forever. Um, how much of that happened?
I know.
It seemed like every marriage.
It is weird because I had like zero exposure to the military before actually joining it. And my entire experience with, interactions with women were mostly that they were going somewhere and doing something. You know,
Oh
I
man.
never encountered this antiquated idea of a woman that, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna find somebody and I'm gonna marry him and then he's gonna take care of me. I didn't have any exposure to that. Like, I knew that there were theoretically women out there who were homemakers and didn't have any real aspirations for themselves to go out there and do something.
What's the stereotype of soccer moms? They essentially give their life up for their husband and their children.
Here's the thing, though.
Oh, we're touching a sore note now. Okay. With both
I,
of us, by the way.
I get the idea. Like, okay, I am going to sacrifice my potential career and give myself 100% to the raising of my child and my family, right? I would expect that if that were in fact true, that that family would be happy all the fucking time, that the house would be in very good order, and those would be some bomb ass kids.
Do you ever see that show Seventh Heaven? That was the basically those ideals given form.
But whenever I actually meet a woman, I haven't seen that show by the way, but
Oh,
whenever I actually meet a woman who's like, oh yeah, that's my thing, I just want to be a mom and take care of kids and stuff like that, and then you go to their house, it's a fucking wreck. And you see their kid, and they're like swinging from the fucking chandelier.
or them and their husband, who used to be your friend, are so totally fucking absorbed into themselves and those kids that they don't have time for anything else.
I haven't seen too much of that.
You'll be pretty bitter. No, you'll be pretty bitter because you'll see incredibly poor decisions being made with that basically the moral escapist attitude of, oh, it's for the kids. Um,
But are you raising kids that are so much substantially better than a woman who works?
Probably. I mean, it
Really?
really depends.
Are
Well, potentially.
how many people do you know? Let's just go from the military, right?
Okay.
Who's had a stay-at-home mom? Because really, that's the only society where I've seen that be the norm. That the man works and the woman doesn't, right?
Okay.
How many of them had these kids that were incredibly well behaved, the home was taken care of, and everything was like running really smooth, and you could see the direct impact in her choosing to put all her time and energy into the child and the home instead of going out working and then earning that money to, I don't know, hire a nanny or daycare or something like that, right? Compared to, so how many were like that compared to these dependopotamuses who just sit around all day watching fucking whatever trash TV's on, smoking, living in a fucking pigsty, not doing shit. And then the kid's crazy out of control all the time.
Probably 100 to 1, but it goes back to that whole thing of people not having ambition. Two people, I will name two. Spradlin.
Mm-hmm.
Who was that goofy son of a bitch? Tall, was an E6. Forgot his name. He was in charge of Ghost Squad for a little bit.
Not ringing a bell.
Yeah, he's kind of ugly, but he was tall, gangly. I think he was in Rangers for a little. He had things down pretty well. Once again, severe discipline, and a home life, a successful home life. But and then an ex-girlfriend of mine, Erica.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll buy that.
Yeah, because she chose to put everything into raising the goddamn kids.
But I would definitely say that is
what,
the
outliers.
Exception. Yeah, exactly, outliers. I think there are genuine women who say, I'm going to sacrifice my career, my future, and such to raise children and make a happy home. And if you're listening to this and you're one of those, disregard that entire previous rant. However,
yeah,
I think
hats off to you.
Absolutely. I think genuinely the biggest job that anyone can have is being a parent. The most important thing that you can do as a human being is to raise another human being to be a good human being. Because if you look at, like, George Bush Sr., decent president, did really good things to rebuild the CIA. We've got a lot of stuff named after him over there. One of the most popular CIA chiefs when he was down there. Raises a kind of an idiot son, gets us into a two-front war that we're still fighting literally a generation later with no exit strategy. Just like, fuck it, I want to go to war.
Yeah.
And when you read their backstory, Bush Senior's like, hey, I don't have time for that. I'm saving the country. I'm trying to make it a better world. And Junior doesn't have that disciplined upbringing and gets in the seat because apparently this is a hereditary democracy. Blows my fucking mind, but whatever. And
hey, at least it wasn't what's his name, Bobby or
Jeb.
Yeah.
Jeb. Old Jeb Bush.
Yep.
But even he gets a governorship.
Yeah.
Like it's a fucking land grant of a barony. Like,
don't let anybody forget.
We can't let you have the kingdom, but we'll give you a state. How about that?
You know what they should do if they give him anything? Give him like the Two-Face coin. Like, give him for all the coins that were flipped during the 2000 election. Somebody needs to make that man carry a coin everywhere he goes.
Anyway, so I'm kind of getting on a rant here. Again, all these will probably be good topics for future shows. But, if you are one of these women who devote yourself to creating an intelligent, educated, well-balanced, loved but not overloved, and disciplined, incredibly hard to do human being, fucking awesome. I think that there needs to be people who do that. Definitely. An absolute hero if you do that. That being said, 99% of you lazy bitches out there are abdicating all of your actual responsibility because you know you can get away with it. And you're using the idea of being a homemaker and you're hiding behind the coattails of these women who are doing a genuinely good job and putting in the hours and busting their ass to be fucking lazy. To sit at home and have your lazy fucking TV watching, bonbon eating lifestyle subsidized by some dude that you got to knock you up.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's, I'll ask you this. I don't think this is anything we've really discussed between us. One of the things that kind of is an interesting caveat or part to all this is my initial relationship with that ex-girlfriend of mine was absolutely crazy. A lot of new experiences to her, and when she was with me, she was not a parent. and she especially was not a very good parent. And there was a little switcheroo at some point to where she wanted to be a better mother and wanted me to start being a father figure.
Mm-hmm.
And that lasted for a little bit. And then ultimately I was given a choice. The choice being to come support her and the children, or things were going to be off. So she actually quit school and doubled down on being a mom.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I knew there was a while there she's like, hey, I got to do me. And was going to school.
She was going to school and things were good. But basically, and this, for me, it created a lot of animosity for a long time. She used to make fun of me, actually, when I first started school, because it's like, the not finishing high school, kind of, the odds are getting a little slimmer. Joining the Army as infantry, the odds are getting really slim. And then the TBI stuff. Yeah, the traumatic brain injury, the stuttering, and a whole bunch of fucking terrible memory, all of that made it far worse. And kind of one of the good things, she used to make fun of me for stuttering, actually.
Dirty as fuck.
Yeah, no, and part of me hated her for it, which is why I have a massive book collection that I've read almost every book out loud on
I don't know how you couldn't roast her for that. Like, you know why you stutter, right? Hey, can you speak Farsi? No? Okay, you're welcome.
Yeah. No, she used to make fun of me for that. She used to make fun of me for not being able to spell, or I fucking, for the life of me, I still can't write in cursive, which is something I used to really enjoy. But basically, anytime I struggled, she would make fun of me and tell me, it's like, you can try all you want. This whole school thing isn't going to work out for you. And then she's the one that quits and decides to be a full-time mom and asks me, look, you're going to school in San Diego. So you can either continue to do that and things will end, or you can come out here, get a job for 2 years until your GI Bill, till you can get back on it. And I looked into the jobs, and about the only thing would be making rims in a Toyota factory, or literally working in a fucking coal mine. So I ran into a couple interesting decisions. The whole becoming a parent full time. I weighed that briefly with my experiences with her regarding school or any of my ambitions, and I realized there was something toxic to the relationship, to where my ambitions to do something, I'm not out to change the world, but I'd like to have a comfortable life. My ambitions were far beyond the reach of anything she ever considered possible, which is why I think she was always talking shit. So the relationship ended, and she hooked up with a guy that was in the Guard and working in the coal mines, because that's what she wanted. Somebody that she would, I'm sure, provide, not as clinically detached as this, but provide for their needs, and they would provide for hers and her children. So interesting how things turn out. I can't say that she necessarily took the good parent route, though.
Yeah.
Throughout all of this, for the record, she was far smarter than I was, which is why she'd laugh at me when I asked her for help, especially with math or reading or writing papers.
Yeah, I think that's
Ben over here is just like, this bitch, man, like, fucking back to the Farsi thing. No, I don't know. I didn't bow before, as Christensen knows. I'm not one likely to give up. So,
and I think that's the difference. It's, you had that combination of discipline and ambition.
Which, you're married. Yours is, stuff's all fucked up. I can't ask you like a normal person, because you guys are still together and all that. But it brings about the question, and this is one of the reasons I don't really care to get married. what happens when your partner fails you? Fails the ambitions that you both set out to, or the dreams that you set out to. Now that the years are starting to stack on, I'm seeing people where, alcoholism is, she's not just a girl that likes to party a lot. Now she's a fucking alcoholic. I'm seeing that, or drugs, or mental illness, start to come out in people and their relationships. And I don't know. I can't imagine what it'd be like to be in a relationship where I was totally committed and happy, and for that other person to just flip shit. I had something close to it already, which makes me incredibly wary now. So what do other people do? Do they just live in misery?
Yeah. Or they get divorced and they're missing half their shit.
Well, unless you're a man in California. Then you're missing 3/4 of your shit.
Oh, yeah. Divorce rates, so much of it goes to lawyers in the court system. It's a total racket. I'd say 2 takeaways to anybody who's listening and gives a fuck what we think. And to be fair, like, I'm not Donald Trump running the. That's hard to choke out. A lot of cognitive dissonance right there. Like, I know it's a fact, but I can't recognize it as truth. It's like, God, that's so weird. I think he's the president. I'm not the president of the United States, but reasonably successful guy with a highly successful marriage. You too, a reasonable successful guy, and you've done very, very well upon shimmying your way out of the army.
When people ask me what motivates me and I tell them hatred, they don't believe me. They literally don't believe me.
Yeah. Moral of the story is be awesome and seek awesome people.
And be awesome for yourself.
Yeah. Don't be awesome for fucking anybody else. And when you are those things, good shit comes to you. It's hard to keep a disciplined, hardworking, ambitious person from achieving things. Like, they can definitely have, bad days. They can have shit go wrong. But if you have those characteristics and you associate with other people who have those characteristics, good shit happens to you. Just habitually. When you have good habits, good things tend to happen to you. And be picky. Be picky about it. It's okay. It's okay to be an asshole. I'm sure there are plenty of women who are out there like, oh yeah, you married a girl who's super pretty, super smart.
Fuck both of you.
Like, yeah, fuck you guys, right? But I'm almost done with my master's right now. She's got a doctorate. She's way smarter than me. Way smarter than me. I definitely married up. But I was picky. And it's paid off. I'm also, don't get complacent. Fucking complacency kills in more ways than one.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, what I'm seeing, especially amongst guys, is you'll either make stupid decisions and shack up with women that you really are wasting your time with, or you're picky. Just keep in mind, you can always get pickier, and you can always drop your standards. Only one's really kind of the right way. Yeah. And there's tons of women out there. I see this all the time. Is a lot of guys who are just like, I don't know where to meet women. The ones at the bar are trashy and all of that. And it's like what you were saying of be ambitious, just get out there, travel. Well, I know you weren't saying travel, but basically just put yourself out there and do good things and good work, and you will meet a ton of people. I still get that really weird introduction when I'm somewhere with my girlfriend and I get introduced to somebody, especially amongst older people. They're older than me. They'll just be like, hey, I want you to meet my niece, and the implicit thing is just like, in case things don't work out, here's my niece. And it's like, if I were single, I could run wild, absolutely run wild.
But kind of interesting. I want to caveat off that. I think you put one right across the plate. I want to knock it out of the park. Had something very interesting happen to me Again, for those of you who don't know, I wear a lot of different hats. Army is one of them, but another thing that I do is I make a lot of costumes, uh, cosplay, and I go to a lot of different comic, anime conventions, and things like that, and due to a lot of trial and error and a lot of honing of my craft, both me and my wife, I knocked her over the head and drug her into it. I'm joking, by the way. She's really supportive, and if that's one of the things that make our marriage work and work well is, if I came home tomorrow and said, I've had a vision, we're building an ark, every other woman out there would say, what? You had a vision, we're building an ark? They'd check the forecast. They'd be like, shit ain't raining. Like, what are you talking about, right? I come home, talk to my wife, I'm like, I've had a vision of building an ark. She's like, oh, I'll get the hammer.
You know,
Like, that is incredible to have that support. And it compounds my ability to do awesome shit. Right? So,
there's
go ahead.
there's something else to that. So I've met his wife. For the longest time, I thought she was boring. He really does have the exception to the rule. It doesn't come without price, hence the boring part. But there's certainly things to look for in a partner. If you ask Ben here, he'll be like, "Okay, let's start with everything my wife's got," which is probably good because you're married and very happy, and I'm perpetually in a relationship and get to venture out a little bit more.
Yeah.
But it's certainly interesting to kind of see how people uphold the other end of the relationship. There's some women that'll be like, I'm going to take care of my man by getting my nails and my hair done to look good for him. There's
Fuck
other
that.
that's what we say, because it's like, you're probably better off picking a woman that's beautiful in the first place. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're better off picking one that's beautiful in the first place, and let's all be realistic about it. The day you first see her is going to be the most beautiful she ever is.
Yep.
Because the days wear on us all.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe look 20 years ahead, see how it goes, see if you'd still be happy. But yeah, definitely, Ben's wife will be getting a mallet. If I ever get a wife, hopefully she'll be doing the same.
Yeah. So, go back to that tangent. So I was at a costume contest this past weekend, and we won first place for group costume. If any of you all know the video game series The Witcher, we did a starting armor for Geralt from Witcher 3 and the outfit of Triss Marigold from Witcher 2. And these are not easy, especially the Geralt one has chainmail built into leather in different patches, and it's complicated build. And we did the full thing, made our own swords and everything. They weren't they were prop swords, but looked very, very realistic. And together we've been winning a series of these just based on our hard work and it looking really, really good and some good craftsmanship. And kind of as a result of that, people are starting to recognize me when I'm not in these costumes. And they're like, oh, yeah, you're the dude who dressed as this, right? And going to that, we were leaving. We just won. And this chick comes up in a Catwoman costume, full body and all that. And she goes, oh my god, you guys did so good. By the way, has anybody ever told you that you look just like Brad Pitt? Like, I saw you and I was like freaking out, right? huge compliment. I'm assuming she likes Brad Pitt. Not like, fuck that Brad Pitt guy. You know, he's one of those people that are just associated with the idea of being good looking or whatever. But how, going back to what you were talking about, how did this interaction occur? Right?
Mm-hmm.
By the fact that I was doing awesome shit. If I was sitting on my ass, you know, just watching TV all fucking day, eating trash food, I wouldn't have been there. And even if I would have shown up to that, let's say I do go out there, and I'm just in jeans and a t-shirt, there's no reason for her to interact with me. You know, I'm just some guy in the crowd, right? But when you are doing good shit, like I didn't do that to meet girls, you know, I'm happily married, not gonna fuck with her, and I don't even think she was, you know, like, hey, you know, if you want to nudge this one aside, because we are very obviously together. But would I have been single? Decent possibility that could have led to something. But when you see these guys like, oh, how do you meet women? You just be awesome and do awesome stuff, and you'll find them.
Yeah, absolutely. I've made some friends in school here, and they're younger than I am because we got those army years.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing. They're just like I don't know how you talk to people. Just talk to them like people.
Yeah.
There's an excellent book. Let me see if I remember the name of it. Uh, Once again, back to the big book collection. Never stop learning. We will find out, and I will bring it up in the next discussion. But it was essentially a book on the differences between how men and women communicate, and it was very interesting. I recommend that any man with half a brain read it, and you'll find the other half. It just goes into how we talk, how men talk versus how women talk, and once you read it, it will change, hopefully, how you look at everything, and especially your interactions between people. I tell my buddies that are younger, I'm just like, hey, just talk to them like people. Don't don't talk to them like you have a dirty secret or just like, what buttons do I push to get what I want? Like, just talk to them like people, and if something's going to happen, it's going to happen. And if you talk to a woman like, what buttons do I push to get what I want, and she's receptive of that, you probably don't have any business with her.
Yeah. I think it's a means ends sort of issue. And I tie it back into what we were talking about earlier. Just be awesome. If you're awesome, awesome things happen to you. If you just do awesome shit, you will meet quality people, both men and women, whatever you're into. But if you specifically go out to meet people, women, whatever, for the end result of sleeping with them or whatever, you're just going to meet people who are interested just in that. And that's not quality.
No, it's not quality at all.
You see that with a lot of different cultures, that they confuse the trappings that come along with success with actual success. Easy target, I'm going to throw it out there. If you go to any major installation, right, and you go to there'll be two parking lots, right? There'll be a parking lot for the command, and it'll be a special space reserved for King High Asshole and his car, right? And you go there, and there'll be like a Volvo that's like 10 years old. And then you go to the barracks for the dudes earning shit, and every one of them have a brand new Mustang.
or a Camaro or a Challenger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, this dude has real power. He's making real money. And he's driving a sensible car. And you're over here just chasing the trappings of power. That's the ambition without the discipline. You know? And you see it a lot there, and there's a lot of other different groups that chase that sort of thing. I'm going to leave it there. It's probably a rant for another time. I've got a whole, I could do a whole hour on that in and of itself. But, yeah, just be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And, find stuff that you're interested in. It's interesting to see what people view as hobbies, because there are several things that I did not view as, for example, I'm pretty big into firearms. I didn't view it as a hobby. I viewed it as like, this is something that I got to have.
Yeah, that's what you do.
Yeah, because and that in and of itself made it a hobby. But other people, I look at them, I'm just like, Jesus Christ, why do you collect lamps? Like, that's the dumbest thing you could do. But but that's their hobby, and that's just what they do.
I think a hobby, well, I guess anything could be a hobby if you
start picking on people's hobbies.
I think it should be something that pushes you. I don't even think of, if somebody asks me what my hobbies are, I'm like, oh, I don't really have any hobbies. They're just shit that I do.
Mm-hmm.
I recently moved to Texas from North Carolina, and part of that is I had to find all sorts of new places to support the various things that I'm into. One of them being training in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and MMA. And it was interesting, I was filling out the form, and one of the questions on there was, why do you want to train? What do you want to get out of it? And I'm like, this is a stupid question. That's just what you do. You just train. Like, there's not like an end point. Like, I know people are like, oh, I'm going to go to the gym so I can lose 10 pounds. What happens when you lose 10 pounds? Mission complete, and then you go and then you eat until you got another 10 pounds. Like, the question seemed nonsensical. And I literally wrote on there, to fight more gooder. That's what I'm here for. That's what you do. You just, there's something that you do, and you just continually do it and improve, and there's not an end to it. There's not, you don't do it to reach some undefined goal, or specifically defined goal. You do it because there's merit in doing it in and of itself. It's a hard thing to do. And I think it's the same thing with, you going out and shooting all the time. You do that because it's something that you do. It's a skill that's good to have in case you need to kill somebody. I mean, let's be real about it. Like, I don't train MMA, because it's a better cardio than running. I do it in case I need to cause physical harm to another person in order to preserve my safety or the safety of the people I care about. You go out and you shoot and you master that craft so that you can potentially shoot people if it's warranted.
A little bit. I got into the other side of it as well, to push myself beyond what I thought possible, and the results still surprise me, as you've seen.
Mm-hmm.
But you're absolutely right. My original intentions were to be able to defend me and mine, and then from there, it's developed into part of an incredible skill set that most people don't have.
Exactly. And shocking to me that people don't. Like, it blows my mind that people don't know how to fight. Especially because I'm surrounded by people who are fighters. Like, I surround myself with those sorts of people just by fighting. So it's like, oh yeah, I think, like, okay, I'm like a middle of the road fighter because I'm training against guys who are fighting professionally in localized. I mean, nobody's like UFC light middleweight whatever champion that I'm going against, but guys who are fighting at the professional level, and I'm holding my own, And then there's always that one guy at the gym who's really good, making his way to Pride, UFC, Bellator, something like that in the future, and just goes and kicks everyone's ass. Or the black belt who's been doing it, since he was knee high to a duck, and he just ball everyone up. Those guys are always there. So I look at it just as like, like a middle of the road fighter. I'm okay, right? But then when you look at it and compare it to the general population of like nobody who trains, even people who are in jobs where they should, like the military, it blows my mind that nobody in the military knows how to fucking fight. They don't.
Yeah.
They don't train it. They get like very, very basic stuff in basic training, of which they almost all forget immediately. And there's no continued training in hand-to-hand combat.
It's like your job is to kill people.
Yeah.
Which what it ended up being our experience was your job is really to be fed into the meat grinder until we come out on top.
Yes,
Good old
infinitely replaceable.
Yes, and yeah, that's the answer to full spectrum warfare is to out resource your enemy.
Yeah.
Something I've noticed out here is a lot of people own firearms. Quite a few people own military firearms because they tend to be a little bit cheaper. The firearms industry has developed into a machine of its own that advertises and produces products based on fads for the most part. So it's interesting to see a lot of people get caught up in it. And I know for quite a few people, a lot of people will talk shit about my preferred weapon, AK-47, or AKM for the snobby people. But it's interesting to see people with like tons of gear or tons of money into their stuff not be able to run their rifle, not know what to do if it goes down, if parts break or if something fails. It's very interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, how many would you say that own weapons? First, okay, let's just say, I mean, you are in California. I know in your section you're a little bit more rural, so you're going to see higher instances of gun ownership, but they make it so fucking hard to get any sort of firearms over there.
Yeah.
Comparing, like I have to compare myself, I think it's that same thing. Like, you do firearms, so you're around firearms people, you're in a high firearms area, but just compare yourself to the general population. Like, how many people do you think even own a gun?
Out here in California?
Yeah.
Maybe 1 in 30. Maybe.
And how many of those who do own a gun have immediate access to it should they really genuinely need it and have the proficiency to be able to use it?
In their home? I revised my answer. Maybe 1 in 100. And in their home or daily, any point during the day? Because if you say any point during the day, I'm going to tell you it's only going to be cops.
Yeah, exactly.
And if it's in their home,
wait, there's going to be two people: cops and criminals.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. So sorry, I didn't think about that one. I was thinking about people I associate with, but and we'll leave that one quiet. Yeah, and of the people that in their home, probably about a third. I'll see stuff where I'm just like, wow, that's interesting. You got a shotgun behind the couch. When's the last time you cleaned it? Oh, you didn't need to clean it. It's a shotgun. I'm like, holy shit, man. Let's see if it works. Thing's rusted solid. Hasn't moved in 4 or 5 years.
Jeez.
We live in a fucking coastal climate, like right off the coast. Yeah, but for to answer your question, for people that can run it, not a lot. Not a lot at all. It's mostly the prior service guys. Most people out here own handguns as opposed to rifles. And then of the people that own rifles instead of handguns or people that own guns in general, hardly any people use or own modern military firearms or military style. Most people own a hunting rifle. People own AR-15s because they, to hunt with them and because at this point they're cheap.
Okay, let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say they don't own guns because it's impractical in California, where if you carve a piece of wood that looks too much like a gun. 20 years, fuck them. You know?
God help you if you build a gun that slam fires or is fully automatic because it's malfunctioning from its original design. It's still fully automatic. You're fucked.
So, how many of them train in something else? Train to defend themselves, train to be able to fight should they need it. Versus how many people are just like, oh, I'll just hope that shit works out.
None. Almost none. Like, I train with a knife because it's what I can carry everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And then the guns are a hobby, but most people don't at all.
And, you know, that blows my mind. I think we need to do another series on the cinematic masterpiece of Starship Troopers.
Yes.
Like, I know that it gets a lot of razz for being some like shitty B movie almost.
Tits and
Yeah. But if you look at the philosophy behind it, there's for those of you who haven't seen it, or those of you who did and were just distracted by, like, the only thing you saw was guns, giant praying mantis, and boobs, you missed some very subtle but very brilliant points. There's a point in some of the starting scenes when the main characters are still in their version of high school, and they're talking about how their society is set up. Very interesting, political, philosophical points being brought up there.
Yeah, especially regarding the inherent born rights of some people.
Exactly. And how they differentiate between a citizen and a civilian.
To cap back, and we got to wrap this up. But,
yeah, definitely.
To cap back to what I was talking about earlier, for an excellent book, one that will make you not only a better person, but a much better husband or boyfriend, or just friend in general. The book is That's Not What I Meant by Deborah Tannen. Excellent book to read, and one that basically underlines, how men communicate, how women communicate, and the deficiencies in our communications with each other.
Okay.
So
I'll have to check that out. So
not a hipster book, it's practical.
We're plugging that, and we're plugging the movie What Happened to Monday on Netflix.
Yes, we got to get back to that.
We're not getting paid any money to plug those, by the way. Just our own opinion.
Yeah. So I'd say have a good night, and until next week.
Yeah.